Before we begin the lesson on section 6.4, let's review what it means to be a percent. If we break up the word percent, we have two different words. We have per and we have cent. And you can write this at the top of your 6.4 notes. There should be some space on the right-hand top corner. Per means out of. And cent, if we think about cents and pennies, cents for century, centipede, centimeter, all of those words have something in common, and that is 100. So cent means 100. Per means out of, cent means 100. So put together, percent means out of 100. Now the word out of, we can use the vinculum or the fraction bar to mathematically represent out of. So percents can be written in a ratio form. So percent ratio is just taking your percent number, such as 32%, and writing it out of 100, because percent means out of 100. So you would change it to 32 over 100. Now notice, I didn't put 32% out of 100, because once you write it over 100, the 32 over 100, that's the same thing as the percent sign. 32% out of 100 is not the same thing as 32 out of 100. It's very different. So the percent ratio is writing your percent number over 100 and dropping the percent sign. Okay, so big things to remember here. Percent means out of 100. The goal for section 6.4 is finding the percent of a number given sentences like what is 30% of 80, 180% of 90, those kinds of things. To do this, we need to know the percent ratio, the percent proportion. And you set it up as is over of equals percent over 100. You'll want to memorize this. And now it's also important to realize that is over of represents your part over your whole. The part represents the numerator and the whole is in your denominator. And percent is always over 100 because if we think back to the meaning of percent, it means out of 100. Okay, so here in this table I've listed some common percents that you might want to know. They're a little funky, so if you notice those halves, 12.5, 62.5, 37.5, 87.5, likely you're talking about an eighth, or 3/8 or 5/8 or 7/8. And then 1/3 and 2/3, that's 33.33333% and 66.66666% would be 2/3. Those are common things that you'll need to know. Okay, let's go ahead on to example 1, and we're going to find the percent of each number. So here I have a statement, 30% of 80. Let's go ahead and write this as a question. What is 30% of 80? Using this statement, this question, we can pick apart parts of the sentence to meet our requirements on this percent proportion. Now when we do this, you always want to set up your percent proportion first, and on the bottom right hand corner goes 100. Now I recommend that you find the number with the percent sign first because it always goes over 100. So here I've got 30%. When I write it over 100, remember I drop my percent sign because percent sign means out of 100. Next, I'm going to look at what I have left. I have of 80. Well, of 80, since of is next to 80, of is going to go on the bottom. So 80 is going to go on the bottom over here. And then I have what is. So do you see how the word what is next to is? It means I don't know what is, so I'm going to put an X in its place. Now notice some people get confused. They'll put 30 in the top for is because 30% is next to the word is. But remember, 30%, percent always goes over 100, so that means 30 has to go above the 100. We know how to solve proportions, so from here, we're going to go ahead and cross multiply. Use our Billy Bob Joe the butterfly. This becomes 80 times 30 is 2,400 equals 100 times x. We solve for x dividing by both sides by 100, which means, see I have 2 zeros at the end there so I can cross them out, x is equal to 24. So 24 is 30% of 80. Okay, let's do the second practice, or the second example. I'm going to phrase this as a question. What is 180% of 90? So I'm going to set up my proportion. I always put 100 on the bottom right-hand corner. And I'm going to find that percent sign number because it's kind of right there at you. It's the number with the percent sign. And I'm going to put 180 on the top. Now, it's okay to have a percent that's bigger than 100. And when you put it over 100, you got to keep the number. 180, drop the percent sign. My next number that I have left is of 90. If I look back up at my is over of goes on the denominator, so 90 goes on the bottom. And x is going to go in the numerator since we don't know what is. Set up my Billy Bob Joe the butterfly. And this time I'm going to start with the wing with the variable. So 100x equals 90 times 180. I'm going to save yourself the math. That's 160 or 16,200. I still have to divide both sides by 100. Sorry for losing track of my space. 100 divided by 100 simplifies to 1. Those 2 zeros on 16,200 cancel out. So I have x is equal to 162. So if we think about this, 162 is 180% of 90. And that makes sense that we'll get a bigger answer because 180% is bigger than the number that we started with. So it needs to be almost twice of 90. And twice of 90 is 180, so 162 is pretty darn close. Okay. Now it's your turn. First practice problem. What number is 25% of 160? Go ahead and pause the video. I want you to solve this on your own and then hit play when you're ready. First step is to set up my proportion. Putting 100 on the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to locate that percent sign. 25 is going to go on top of 100. And then I have of 160. So that's going to go on the bottom since it is over of equals percent over 100. And then I don't know what is. It says what number is. So I'm going to put an X in that spot for the top. Cross multiply. So I'm going to have 100 times x equals 160 times 25. So if you did that on your calculator, 160 times 25 should be 4,000. Divide both sides by 100. Those cross off. My last 2 zeros cross off. So I have x equals 40. How'd you do? Okay, second practice problem. It's going to look a little bit different, but I think you can do it. 25% of 47 is what number? Okay, pause the video, work it out yourself, hit play when you're done. Let's set up the proportion over 100 on the bottom right-hand corner. Find my number with the percent sign, 25%. That goes over 100 since percent means out of 100. I guarantee that's going to be a test question. You might want to make a mental note. Percent means out of 100. Then I'm going to find my next number. See how it says of 47? Of 47, so that means 47 is of. It's going to go on the bottom. That's my whole number. And then I don't know what is, so that's going to be an X on the top. Set up my cross products. 100 times X equals whatever 47 times 25 is. That's 1175. 1175. Divide both sides by 100. Okay, now this time I can't do my fancy divide or cross out the zeros at the end since 1175 doesn't have any zeros. But the nice thing about dividing by a power of 10, so 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, those types of numbers, when I'm dividing it means I'm moving my decimal to the left however many zeros I have. So since I have 2 zeros, I'm going to move my decimal to the left twice. So X would be 11 75/100. Feel free to check my math in the calculator, but it should be 11 75/100. How'd you do? Last problem. Whitmer Middle School has 850 students. If 42% of the students bought lunch on Monday, how many students bought lunch on Monday? All right, so you know how we've been emphasizing is over of equals percent out of 100? Well, you also need to know that is over of is part over whole equals percent out of 100. And let's reread this question and identify what pieces of information we know. Whitmer Middle School has 850 students. That's the total that they have. That's your whole. And then the 42%, well, that has the percent sign, so that's my percent. That means I don't know my part. That's what I'm trying to find. Let's put those pieces of information in our proportion, cross multiply, and solve. So percent, that would be 42. The whole number is 850. Put in my X for my part. Let's cross multiply. So I have 100X equals 42 times 850. That's 35,700. Divide both sides by 100. I can cross off my zeros this time. So X equals 357. And that's your answer. There were 357 students who bought lunch on Monday. That does it for section 6.4. Remember, is over of equals percent over 100 because percent means out of 100.